Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about how to play Thoth. We're going to talk about his strengths, his weaknesses, his passive and abilities, and as well as the build and the items that he tends to favor the most. First, we're going to touch on what he does well in his strengths. So the first thing he does well is he does very well in solo farming metas. Basically metas where the support and jungler do not split any waves or hardly any waves. And it creates a lot of 1v1 potentials, which is something he's really good at. He has high poke and great objective confirm. The high poke creates great pressure in mid for him, which leads into those 1v1 potentials I was mentioning. Getting them low and then being able to finish them off with the final judgment is always going to be satisfying. So that's just something he's very good at, and he will always be very good at. He also has a lot of one-shot potential later in the game, and this is based around the build and items that he prefers to do, but also to deal with his passive, which we'll get into later. But also, you're rewarded for landing your abilities. I mean, specifically for your hieroglyphic assault, it reduces the cooldown every time you hit an enemy god with it, and it's 3 shots, so a 10-second cooldown can turn into a 7-second cooldown. You know, if you have 40% CDR, that's 6 seconds, it turns into 3 seconds. You know, that's just very potent and leads, again, to that 1v1 potential, the high poke, and just having that is very hard to deal with. He's very good and great into low ability mids and mids that have channel ultimates. So low channel ultimates is like Raijin, Baron Samedi. I included Giannis here because I think he does very well into the god. Vulcan is more about the mobility issue. It's hard for him to get away from you, but you also can kind of get hit by turrets if you're not being careful and not using your wall. So just got to be a little more safe on that one. But Discordia, you'll see when some of the clips, when you pick Discordia, I'm just going to eat you alive on this god. So it's just, she can't get away from him ever. You cover half of her pull when she leaps with your hieroglyphic assault, so you're always going to win poke trades. You're always going to force her out. She's not going to be very useful if you do pick her into Thoth. But now let's talk about his weaknesses. What does he not do well? Well, he has no CC immunity in his kit. He's not like Giannis or Discordia or Raijin, Baron in those cases. They all have CC immunity in their ultimates. He does not, which makes him easily countered by junglers like Daji, Ravana, Fenrir. A Mercury player can also kind of take advantage of this. So it's not great for him to not have any CC immunity outside of having purification beads. And then also he's easily countered by gods like Ares, Kuzenbo, gods that can either prevent him from getting away, gods that can pull him back in, force those purification beads for their junglers, interrupt his channeling of his ultimate, final judgment. Those kind of gods really affect him. So be thinking about that when you're drafting him wherever you are in your ranked games and your competitive games, because drafting him super early, you've got to expect a smart team to really want to shut that down. And you just got to consider that. Also, he could be countered by other aggressive mid gods with ranged poke. Agni is the biggest example of this, but also pairing Morgan Le Fay with an aggressive jungler is very hard for him to deal with. Ability ADCs they're not hard to deal with. Honestly, AMC is the hardest one of those because his movement speed from his hive makes it really hard to poke him consistently with how fast he can move. Gods like Marty, not really that much of an issue. It's just that when you want to ult Marty, he just ults in response and you cannot hit him with it. So just those mentions for weaknesses. That's really all the weaknesses he has, though. I feel like he's strong in the mid and late game. He's good early, and he's just consistent. So I don't think he's got many weaknesses whatsoever. And next we'll touch on his passive and abilities. His passive, you can get a max of 15 flat pin and 5% pin. You do this by getting a stack to get a stack, you have to kill 20 enemies, which includes minions, which includes camps, and you get 1 stack for that, and that's 3 flat pin and 1% per stack. You can max that out at level 17. If you are working on a stack and you kill a god, it finishes off that stack for you, and you can start working on that next stack to get you even more penetration. Maxing your 1, the hieroglyphic assault, is always gonna be what you do if your ultimate cannot gain an extra point. You're always gonna want more poke, and you want to have it do as much damage as soon as possible, as much as possible. After that, it's up to you. You can go with the 2, you can go with the 3, so either your dash, evade, and punish, or the wall, glyph of pain. It just really depends on how you have to play your matchup with mid. Can you get a kill at level 2? Okay, let's go with your dash. Are you potentially going to be first one at level 2? You can get your dash, but what if you just get your wall and clear from a distance? That way you're not presenting yourself in the middle of the wave or close to the wave, and you're away from the enemy jungler and mage. So those are just some things to think about. Are you going to want to be getting the extra damage from your glyph of pain, the extra 10 to 50 damage depending on the rank, for your abilities when you do poke? Is that more worth it than maxing the 2 for more immediate damage? It's really up to you at that point. But with that said, we'll go into builds and items. First off, the starter item. For me, I understand that this current patch and last current patch, or those past patches, I should say, that Sands of Time is the better starter item since the Conduit nerf. However, the best starter item upgrade is still Gem of Focus. I understand that upgrading Sands of Time into Pendulum not only gives you 20% CDR, but also gives you more power, but you're always going to have your Gem of Focus passive stacked at max at all times. When you're in the late game and you got 40% CDR, your 3 is on a 3-second cooldown. That counts towards the passive. Anytime you use your 1, counts towards the passive. And at that point in the game, you've got it on a 5-second cooldown, 6-second cooldown, and the passive lasts for 9 seconds, 10 seconds, something like that. It's very long. So you're always going to have it up. You're always going to be able to do max damage with that build. You're always going to do 100 to 200 more damage on your ultimate with it over Pendulum and your other abilities. So I will still always go Conduit Gem because I want that threat in the late game to do even more damage. If you do that, you use the CDR ticky and you never take it off. That way you're not losing all the CDR in the world. So for the core items, so you either go Book of Thoth or do Morm first. Both items provide you mana, flat pin, and MP5. So it really depends on if you feel like you need to get away from the enemy jungler. You would want to go with do Morm in that situation. If you think you can use it effectively to dive, keep it stacked up to gain more power, keep the power maxed out, that's also something you can consider. Or do you want Book of Thoth, which is going to help you later in the game when you have that stacked all the way up and have so much more power because of the passive of having so much mana and whatnot. Next up, Desolation or Divine Ruin, whichever you need there. If you have to get anti-heal, you go Divine Ruin. If you don't need it, Desolation is insane on Thoth because of the cooldowns and how his kit works. Reducing his cooldowns by 2 seconds when he's already reducing them by 1 second per shot on his hieroglyphic assault is just absolutely hilarious when you get a cool assist. So it's very hard to pass up. Next up, Staff of Mirrodin. This item procs on his ultimate, so once you let it go, the passive starts and you are already doing 25% more damage, so it makes his ult hit even harder, makes his hieroglyphic assault hit even harder. So this is a must buy on him, and I think it's only 2,600 gold. Soul Reaver, it's a proc item you can abuse often. with such low cooldowns with Hieroglyphic Assault, it'll proc off of your 2, off of your 3, off of your ultimate. Everything you have in your kit procs it. And then lastly, Obsidian Shard or Charon's Coin. I like to go Obsidian Shard. Also, there's a mention of possibly going Magus here, but I'll leave that last. Obsidian Shard. So it's going to be the second item that you have in your kit with % pin. It'll have 20%. Mirrodin will have 10%. That's 30 of the 40 cap. But it'll let you go to 50% on the first god you hit every 5 or 10 seconds, whatever it is currently. So you'll overcap plus your penetration from your passive. That's another 5%. So that'll get you overcap, and you'll have 45 flat pin with your passive plus those 2 items in your build, first 2 items in your build. So you're gonna have a lot of penetration, the most that any god in the game can get as far as a mage is concerned. You can go Charon's Coin there if you think the game's going to go even later and you want to get more movement speed, stack it up. But personally, I think Obsidian Shard's best. Or if you think just one single target is best, Magus has 10% pin, also gives you 5% more damage onto an enemy god. So if you feel like you can go that last, you can, because you already are maxed out or close to maxed out on your % pin anyway. If not, you'll be at 45% with this, with Mirrodin, with your passive. Oh, I'm sorry, you'll be at 25% with your Mirrodin and Magus and your passive, which isn't really enough for tanks, but if you're just going to kill their front and backliners, it doesn't matter that much. But if you think tanks are going to be an issue, skip that, go Obsidian Shard. You'll kill everybody in the world. So that's really it. So for me, every game, if I can do it, I'm going Conduit Gem. I prefer Doom Orb over Book of Thoth because it allows me to be more active earlier. Desolation, Mirrodin, Reaver, Shard, and you can switch out when you build Shard and Reaver in those 4th and 5th slots. You can switch it around, but then upgrade your Conduit Gem into Gem of Focus. As soon as you hit level 20, it's the best starter item. Upgrade, and it's better than any upgrade you're going to get from any item or any passive from any item that you're going to get for the rest of the game. So with this, give it a shot. Go to jungle practice and just watch how Deathbot dies.